What's going on, guys? Cultimush back at it with a how hard is it to run video of Mad Max. Now this video is very interesting because Mad Max is being published by Warner Brother Games. Warner Brother Games' last game, Batman Arkham Knight. We all know how Batman Arkham Knight turned out on PC. Another interesting factoid about Mad Max is it's being developed by Avalanche Studios. Avalanche Studios are the guys that did Just Cause 2 and are currently working on Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is coming out this year. Mad Max is also coming out this year, so that's a little bit interesting. But Avalanche released Just Cause 2, and Just Cause 2 is widely considered one of the best games on PC, so kind of a conflicting of interests. If I had to guess, I do think Mad Max is going to end up being a pretty good PC port, but Warner Brothers is publishing the game, so we don't know if they're making Avalanche half-ass the PC port. We will see in just a few days. But with that being said, in this video, I'm going to take a look at the system requirements that have already been released. Some interesting stuff in there, so let's get right into this with minimum CPU requirements. For minimum CPU requirements, you're looking at an Intel Core i5-650 3.2 GHz or an AMD Phenom 2 X4 965 3.4 GHz. Pretty low-end processors as of 2015. The i5-650 is so many generations old, as is the Phenom 2 X4 965. The 965 was one of the most popular CPUs back in the day, and I think the 965 is actually a CPU a lot of you guys still run if you haven't upgraded your PC in a while. But that's kind of cool to see that people that bought the Phenom 2 X4, 5-6 years ago, are still good for running one of the more notable titles of the game in Mad Max. And an i5-650, I think most of you guys have something at least similar to this if you built your PC in the last year or two. If you built your PC in the last year or two, you probably have something far better than what's listed as the minimum requirements. Recommended CPU requirements, it gets amped up a little bit. Recommended CPU is an Intel Core i7-3770 3.4 GHz or an AMD FX 8350 at 4.0 GHz. Now, an interesting thing to note is it looks like this game will use more than 4 cores if available. The i7-3770 is a quad-core CPU with hyper-threading, and as most of you guys know, the FX 8350 has 8 physical cores, so that's pretty cool. But it's kind of weird how you jump from a Core i5-650 right into a Core i7-3770. I kind of wish there was a little bit of a middle ground that we could have set, but whatever, I guess. I do think if you have an i5 and you have it tadly overclocked, I think you guys are going to be just fine. Even if you have like an i5 that's not even overclocked, I think you're going to be just fine. And as far as AMD CPUs go, I do think if you have something like an AMD FX 6300 or even an Athlon 2X4, I think you're going to be just fine as well. RAM requirement, minimum RAM requirement 6 GB, recommended 8 GB. Not much more to say here. It's been pretty commonplace that we've been seeing either 6 and 8 GB or 4 and 8 GB for your minimum and recommended RAM requirements respectively, so this is nothing too surprising. Minimum GPU requirement, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660 Ti 2GB model or the AMD Radeon HD 7870, also 2GB. So it does look like you're probably going to want a 2GB video card if you're going to play this game. Nowadays, most GPUs that come out, you're getting a 2GB model. Recommended video card, you're looking at an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 760 or an AMD Radeon HD 7970. Now, the Radeon HD 7970 is significantly better than the GTX 760, so that's just something you should keep an eye on. I don't know if this is going to be a game that's going to run better on NVIDIA GPUs, but going by the recommended GPU requirements, that might be a possibility. Also, for both of these GPUs, it's recommended that you have 3 GB or higher of video buffer, which for a lot of the higher end cards is pretty common. But the GTX 760 was a pretty mid-level video card, so you probably don't have a 3 or 4 GB GTX 760. But like I said, the GTX 760 is significantly weaker than the Radeon HD 7970. But then when you look at the minimum graphics requirement, the GTX 660 Ti and the AMD Radeon HD 7870 are actually pretty equivalent. And in actuality, the GTX 760 is pretty comparable to the GTX 660 Ti. So just a little interesting, we're gonna have to check out how this game performs on AMD and NVIDIA GPUs. I think this is gonna be a game that is gonna piss a lot of people off with AMD GPUs, but we shall see. Also, as far as what the Radeon HD 7970 is equivalent to these days, you're looking at probably like an R9 280, something to that degree is probably equivalent to an HD 7970. I'm not a big fan when, you know, developers list pretty old graphics cards for their system requirement. I mean, if you're just getting into PC gaming, who at this point knows what a GTX 660 Ti is or an AMD Radeon HD 7870? AMD has moved on to a completely new numbering scheme, so it's just a bit confusing. I'd like to see some of the developers fix that up, but some interesting nuggets here with the system requirements of Mad Max. One last thing I do want to note is 32 GB of hard drive space, so that's not too bad for an open world game like this. I honestly don't think 32 GB is that bad at all, but some pretty interesting things to note. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this game performs on NVIDIA GPUs opposed to AMD GPUs. Maybe it'll all work out and everybody will be happy and this game will be a fantastic port. with Warner Brothers publishing this game. I know Avalanche is really good with PC games, but I'm just a little cautious. I will let you guys know how this game runs on September 1st, so stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.